Thank you. So I have to say that the SheEO calls are my chance to see a screen full of women. It's unbelievable. Every time I look down and I look at the numbers, I'm like, it can't be, and they just keep going up. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is BDG. I'm out of Montreal. I'm an activator with SheEO. Have been for a while. Jesse and I were talking yesterday about how I started with SheEO, and I was having a hard time remembering. What I can remember is that notion, the idea of radical generosity just did like a ding, and I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I haven't looked back. And SheEO has tapped into my facilitation love. So here I am and welcoming you, and so happy to meet all of you. So what we're doing today, it's a public call that occurs once every few weeks. And I'll go into more details about it in a minute, but I want to hand it over to Kathy Ristic, who's going to be leading us through the land acknowledgement. Kathy? I'm going to say the famous words. You are on mute. And you are still on mute. Jesse, are you able to unmute Kathy? There we go.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad to be here, and thank you so much for joining us on this call. It's great to see so many fantastic women, and what a great pump-up song to start off with for those of you that were on a bit early. I'm going to you acknowledge is very personal to me. My land acknowledgement pertains to the land and county, and particularly to the lands in a town called Petrolia in southwestern Ontario. All of my mother's ancestors who first immigrated to Canada came from England in the 1830s to receive land grants from King George IV. The family narrative was that they were pioneers who came for free land, but we know it wasn't free. As it happened, a portion of one land grant was still owned by a great uncle at the time of his death in 1973. This parcel of land was in Lambton County, just outside the town of Petrolia. And my mother ended up executor of this uncle's estate, so was tasked with selling these lands to distribute the proceeds to his heirs, of which she was one. In this way, I know that I'm a direct beneficiary of colonization in Canada. I wish to acknowledge the tremendous economic advantage this and other land grants provided to many generations of my maternal family, and how this is exemplary of the workings of and perpetuation of white privilege, which I personally have participated in and taken advantage of. In the spirit of reconciliation, I wish to acknowledge that these lands were granted to my ancestors. They were the traditional territory of and inhabited by the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, Delaware, and also known as the Anishinaabe and the Lenape nations. This was at the time of the written Treaty Number 29, the Huron Tract Purchase of 1827. And I also acknowledge the earlier Indigenous peoples that traveled these lands prior to 1790 in the time of the Wampum Treaties. It is through Indigenous peoples' connection with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique culture, traditions, and values. It is their belief, which I share, that they are part of the land that sustains all life, and it is the sacred responsibility of all people to ensure that the environment remains protected. These Indigenous nations agreed through their ancestral languages to the mutual sharing of the land, which obligations and responsibilities include to the environment. Today, these responsibilities and obligations extend to me and to all peoples. Thank you. Back to you, BBG.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And for those of you, I think I mentioned it at the beginning, I am in Montreal right now. And Montreal has recently been the scene of the brutal murder, because there's no other word that can be used, of an Indigenous woman who went to get care at the Joliette Hospital. And so I think that having these conversations around acknowledging where we are and how we relate to each other is even more critical in these times. So thank you very much, Kathy. And so we come here as a community in these public events that are hosted once a month for all of you to experience what SheEO community is, and for activators to invite guests so that they can experience this. So today's call, this is what we're going to be doing together today. Vicky, the founder of SheEO, is going to be giving us an overview. And then we have a special guest, MJ, and I'm going to have a lot of fun presenting her, because we had a whole conversation around what that could look like. So MJ is the SheEO development guide, and she's going to share with us a practice of the power of self-compassion. I have to say that for me coming in today, I really need to have that practice and to hear you guide us through it. MJ also is on the weekly activator calls to guide the community with different practices. And so this is the opportunity for all of us here to experience one such practice. Then once we've learned the actual concept, we're going to go into breakout rooms so we can actually experience this. So we're doing, not just hearing, but we're doing and experiencing the benefits of that practice. If you're hearing my voice tremble, it's because I have not facilitated in a while, and that I'm a bit intimidated to be in front of 76 women, even virtually. So let's get started. One of the things that we have been doing at SheEO is the one-word check-in. So in your chat, please tell us how you were feeling today, how you are coming to this gathering. I can start. I'm not going to type, otherwise you can hear it, but I can start. I'm coming intimidated and grateful, but intimidated. So please go ahead and put it in the chat and then Caitlin is going to share with us the Mentimeters so we can see how everybody is feeling. Fired up and excited, grateful, yes. Spacious. I was talking about space. An hour ago, I was having a conversation with a wonderful woman about space and about taking space. Apprehensive and worn down and trembling. It's the times, isn't it? Which is why community is so important. And I hope that can help with those feelings. Apprehensive, ready. What else do we have? Uncertain, overwhelmed, exhausted. We're all building together. These are all things that we bring together into this space and that we can build from. Thank you, Kathleen. Amazing. Thank you, everybody. So please, in the chat, for those activators that brought somebody with them today to experience this community, please do tag them. Tell us why you invited this person. And while we're doing that, I am going to hand the mic over to Vicky so she can give us an overview of SheEO. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So excited to see you today. Let me just get my screen up here. I'm fired up. Those are my words because I just got off a call. If you don't know anything about SheEO, you'll understand what this means in a minute. But 5 years ago when we were getting started, I met with a very influential male banker and I was explaining this model and he's like, there's no market discipline in a 0% interest loan. That was his comment about what we're doing. And I was like, have you met women before? 500 women who've contributed capital is enough market discipline to scare anyone's socks off. And so there's a ton of market discipline in this model. But the reason I'm fired up about that is because I just did a podcast with him and he went on and on about how amazing our model is and how incredible it is and what visionaries we are. So sometimes it takes a while for new things to get noticed, but I'm excited by that because I have people on my list when they don't get what we're doing and we get to then come back to them later. Here's one of the reasons why we're here. This insane number, 2.2% of venture capital globally goes to women entrepreneurs, which is statistically impossible. Some of you have heard me say this before. It's statistically impossible to happen without massive biases built into all of our structures and our systems. And so one of the things that people do when they see this kind of injustice is they go and create a women's version of the existing model. Well, let's just go create a women's VC fund and that will solve it all. But we are here at SheEO with a deep recognition that you can't just add women and stir to the existing models we have. We need to rethink everything. And that's what we're doing with our model at SheEO. We're here to build a $1 billion perpetual fund with 1 million women activators around the world to support incredible women who are working on the world's to-do list. We are all working on this together. And here's how it works. Activators, which is our name for women who contribute capital, contribute £71 a month or $92 a month. And that money is pooled together into a fund and loaned out at 0% interest to women who are working on the UN SDGs. That money is paid back over 5 years into the fund and reinvested again. So this whole perpetual model of your one-time contribution just keeps paying it forward over and over. In case you don't know about the UN SDGs, every government has signed on to these as the global priorities, and our short form for this is the world's to-do list. So every venture that we fund is working on one or two of these global priorities. This model is working. We've grown it from Canada, where we started in 2015, to 5 different countries: Canada, the US, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK. We have roughly 5,000 activators around the world, and we've funded 68 ventures across the 5 countries and distributed $5 million to date. We have a 95% global repayment rate with that capital. When you contribute your $1,100 each year or $92 a month, 90% of your money goes to the ventures, 90%. And it funds ventures like Brandy, who has created this off-grid, this is a shipping container, which is an off-grid tech-powered crazy amazing thing. It's got solar panels, it's got refrigeration, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got all the tools inside to farm a 4-acre plot to feed people. So it's a food security solution that is just being exported to Africa and looking at being planted right in the middle of refugee camps. She just installed one in Lakota Nation in the US. Amazing new innovations. This is one example of what women in our network are working on. As an activator, 10% of your contribution is going to the activation program. And this call is one example of what happens. We do weekly support calls. We have an online community for you to meet anyone around the world. You can go in and search and find out who's got different skills, where they're based, to meet each other. You can direct message each other on this platform. There's all kinds of resources in here. We are starting to do specialized groups. Racial Justice Working Group is in flow at the moment. We just finished our first version of Rooted in Your Story, led by the amazing Echo Alec, who's this fantastic Indigenous teacher in our community. Lots of tools for people to ask and give and get support from each other, which you'll experience in the breakout rooms a bit later. But COVID has really opened up the opportunity for us to get online on these calls and support each other and get to meet each other and build relationships so that we can help each other with whatever it is that we're here to do in the world. This is not just about funding the ventures, but it's about supporting each other. We believe here that we have everything that we need. I wanted to tell this one story. This is one of our funky, amazing Indigenous women entrepreneurs in the community, Lynn Marie Firewater from Sisters Sage. She came to our global summit in March and was a speaker and worked the room, as she said, to meet as many women as possible, not knowing that the next day we were going to have a pandemic lockdown. And over the past 6 months since then has built up her business and grown over 500% by building relationships with women in this community, getting the word out about her wellness company. So it's Indigenous tradition meets modern wellness. And if you can see on this slide, she is the goddess of making soap in the most artistic, unbelievable way. Her soaps are wicked. But she's like really inspired by full moon and this Van Gogh picture, and she made a soap out of it. And she has these great videos on Instagram. But she came into our community as a gifted activator, as an Indigenous entrepreneur who didn't have the numbers yet to apply to SheEO as a venture. She's built up her entire company during COVID and grown it massively, and is now going to be applying this year. But this is the kind of thing that happens in this community. If you build relationships, you can create ways to get support for your business and have people help you. So it's about all hands on deck to support everyone else who's working on the world's to-do list. I'm going to just end with a bit of a description around, we've done a brand refresh recently and changed our logo. And I wanted to just share that everything that we do here is based on a belief in abundance, that we have everything that we need and we're here to help one another. And what fuels this whole new way of doing business is radical generosity. We show up with radical generosity to help one another. And our logo at the top is really with the slashes through the S and the H, is the deconstruction of gender and also deconstruction of our mindsets that we need to do to get towards an equitable world that works for everyone. And so I'm really glad to have you here. And I just wanted to, like, one last thing. We have a magazine that you can see on our website, our first magazine that we got out there. And this is Jenny Rudd from New Zealand, who was on a mission to make sure Jacinda knew all about SheEO. And so she found out that Jacinda was in her village, and she got in her car and drove over very quickly. It's a great story. And she had a meeting with Jacinda about SheEO and showing her the magazine. So we love world leaders who are out there showing that kindness really creates societies that are more resilient. And our business model is all about that as well. Last thing, everything at SheEO is on your own terms. If you're an activator coming into this community and you're very busy, that's fine. You don't have to deeply participate. If you want to come on every single call, get to meet the ventures and get involved with their businesses, you can do that too. We don't have a standard way of doing anything. It's very much about what if you see something you're excited about and passionate about, jump in and get involved. And if you're too busy, that's fine too. Everything counts. We have women of all ages and stages here supporting one another. And that's it. Back over to you, BBG.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicky. I want to use the notion of radical generosity to introduce MJ, who has written multiple books, but amongst which there's a book called Radical Generosity. And MJ, I'm going to read to do justice. I had said I wasn't going to do it, but because you didn't feed me enough, I'm going to read it so that everybody can get a sense of who you are. So MJ is a SheEO development guide. She's a former founder of a publishing company, author of more than a dozen books, among which Radical Generosity, and also thought leadership, especially around random acts of kindness. And apparently she accidentally started a global movement. Radical generosity is at the core, like Vicky mentioned, of SheEO's model and practices. MJ coaches SheEO ventures around the world and has also been coming on weekly calls, activator calls, to share her wisdom with the activator community. MJ.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really happy and honored to be here today with all of you. And I see my dear friend Esther. Wonderful to see your face joining us today. As everyone said, I'm gonna talk about an aspect of radical generosity. And for us women, I think it's the most radical aspect of generosity, which is being kind to ourselves. The concept of self-compassion. So I'm gonna, here we go. Come on, baby. There you go. All right. So it started with a woman. A woman like many of us, a professional woman and a mother. And she's a professor at the University of Texas in psychology, and she had a severely autistic kid. And what she discovered, she's in paying attention to herself, what she realized was she wasn't a perfect mother, and every time she didn't do exactly the right thing, she would beat herself up, right? She would denigrate herself. Her self-talk was completely negative. This probably sounds familiar to us all about how we treat ourselves when we aren't perfect, we make a mistake, or we wish we had done something different. But she did something that most of us, I guess, don't do, which is that she asked the question, why? Why is it true that we do this to ourselves? And what she discovered, I believe, is one of the most profound discoveries in psychology over the last 20 years. And here's what she figured out. When we do something wrong, when we blow it because we say we're going to try to do this and we don't do it perfectly, we activate our threat system, our amygdala, the fight or flight response that comes from our reptilian brain. It perceives there's a threat. Now this is complicated, so stay with me. The threat is you, because you didn't do what you said you were going to do, so now it wants to attack and kill you. It's trying to eliminate the threat. Being harsh to ourselves is this system's way of helping us and keeping us safe. It wants to point out the danger, and the danger is us. So just that thought to me is absolutely profound. It's really, really why we are so hard on ourselves. So what she then, once she figured that out, she said, okay, well, what is there? Is that useful? Is that a good thing? It doesn't seem to be a good thing. But what would be better? And so what she realizes that we can use a different part of our brain to get better. And to activate our attached system, which is our caregiving system. And it exists in our primate brain. And when we activate it, instead of getting cortisol and adrenaline running through our systems to try to eliminate this threat, we release oxytocin and feel-good hormones that are activated by a warm touch and a warm tone of voice. And we create a sense of safety and well-being from which we can then actually get better. Okay, so let's just look at what actually self-compassion is. So it's being kind and understanding to ourselves in pain or failure rather than being harshly self-critical. It's seeing our experience as part of the larger human experience rather than we're in this by ourselves. This part is very important right now, to have a sense of community, to know that we're not alone. And then it's the ability to hold these thoughts in awareness without over-identifying with them, okay? So, typically when she started talking about these things to other people, because she started to apply it in her own life and saw that it really worked. And she started teaching it and has done all kinds of talks. I saw her first at a TED Talk about 10 years ago. She said, these are the things that people always say when you start to talk about self-compassion. It's self-pitying and egocentric. It's self-indulgent. If you do that, then you're never going to get better, right? And this typically comes from people who've had very harsh adults in their childhood who convinced them that the only way to improve was if I give you a stern lecture, right? If I'm harsh on you, then you're going to get better. So you incorporate that as a belief, and then you start to think that you need to do that for yourself. Or that it's tied to how compassionate we are to other people. And what she discovered in her research is that that's absolutely not true. That we are much more compassionate to others, especially women are much more compassionate to others than we are to ourselves, right? Does that sound familiar? I don't think anyone's surprised about that, right? Okay, so here is what she actually discovered in her research. When we're self-critical, we increase shame, anxiety, and we're more likely to give up in face of mistakes. And we feel disconnected from other people. Everyone else has it together. Everyone else can deal with their kid, and I can't. So we feel disconnected from other people. When we're self-compassionate, it's at the root of empowerment, learning, and strength. It helps us to actually help other people because we recognize what we have to offer, and it helps us feel part of the human family. We're not alone. We're in this together. Some more benefits. We decrease our stress because when we activate oxytocin, the cortisol levels in our body go down. We are less depressed. We suffer less from perfectionism and anxiety. So if these are things that you're challenged with right now, this is something that I think might be really, really helpful to do. And you can see all the things on the right. Look at all the positive things that come from when we are actually self-compassionate as opposed to self-critical. Okay, so what are some of the practices? So in the deck that Jesse will be sending out later, there is at the back of this, my PowerPoint, a list of a bunch of resources that you can go to have there's all kinds of practices that have been grown up around this and all kinds of ways of being self-compassionate. But there's a couple that are really, really simple, and it's the first two that I show here. So it turns out that the attached system gets activated by actual physical touch. Okay, and that the brain can't tell the difference between someone else hugging you and saying, oh, I'm so sorry you're having a hard day, and you saying it to yourself. Okay, so experiment with what gesture works for you. Some people, for me, it's both hands right in the center of my chest. Some people, it's a hug. Sometimes it's a hand on the face. So let's take a minute. Nobody's looking at you right now. Everyone's looking at the PowerPoint. So let's just practice. Just do some gestures and notice which one brings a sense of even a little bit of to yourself, for yourself. Yeah. The next step is to think about, again, while you're doing the gesture, whatever that gesture might be, ask yourself, what would you say to a friend who's going through the same thing? Whatever it is that's being hard right now, whatever is challenging you or upsetting you or being difficult, what would you say to a friend in the same circumstance? And then you just offer that to yourself. You can say it out loud, you can say it inside your head, but this pausing and doing this whenever you're having something difficult happening is one of the most powerful, generous things you can possibly do for yourself. So let's all just take a minute and do that. I'm going to bring to mind something that's difficult. We all have lots of stuff that could be true. There's all kinds of, I was just listening to someone saying, we're all dealing with 3 terrible circumstances: COVID, the rise of authoritarianism, and climate change. So just with those things, without anything in our personal life, we got a lot to handle that we may or may not be handling as well as we would like. So just bring to mind something that is being troubling you, upsetting you, where you feel like it's being hard. Do a gesture and just think to yourself, what would I say to a friend who's going through something just like this? And then say that to yourself. Okay, so we're now going to have a practice of talking to one other person about that, about what you learned, what the effect was on you. Is it something you want to try to incorporate more into your life? Did you feel like, oh, no, 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 if you're too nice to yourself, you're going to just let everything slide? Just whatever was your true reaction. From some of us, most of us, this is extremely non-habitual. Often when I teach this, people cry because it's so painful to be kind and loving to yourself. So whatever is the truth of your reaction is perfectly fine. We're going to, from the magic of Jessie, you're going to arrive in a room with one other person and pick one of you to be the timekeeper, okay? And the first person, it's okay, you've never met this person, you don't have to do any big intros. That's what's so amazing about it. The other person, she's just going to be your witness, right? So for 3 minutes, you're going to talk about what the effect about thinking and practicing self-compassion had on you. There's no right and wrong. Just notice what's true, share it, and think about could I incorporate this? What might I try? When do I need this? How can I remember? Anything that you want to talk about this and bringing this into your life. And the other person practices deep listening. You're just receiving what the other person says silently with no agenda and no response. So you're just receiving. Put yourself in that energetic receptive mode and just listen. This itself is an act of radical generosity, to listen deeply and fully. And then when the time is up, then they switch and the other person goes, and then we'll be back in the room. All right? So Jessie, do you want to help us with the instructions?
Yep. So I've copied and pasted the instructions so you can access that in the chat. And just give me one moment. I see a note from Kat Germain to Kat, if you just don't join the breakout groups, I think that should take care of the issue, and then I'll rearrange everyone else. So we're going to open up the breakout rooms now, and you'll have 7 minutes. Remember to pick a timekeeper, and then each person speaks for 3 minutes. So we'll see you back here in about 7 minutes. Enjoy.
What was it like? And also any questions about this? About self-compassion, about the practice, about how to do other kinds of practice. I want to make sure you all get the resources because there's many other things you can do. So as people are returning, anyone want to share what that was like to talk about that and be received by another human being? Michelle, you're up.
So I just met a future friend, a sister, a woman who is living life with strength and dignity and not even aware of how much strength and dignity she's living her life with. And I want to thank you for that. Today was a dark day as well for me. Sick in bed. And she reminded me how much power we have as individuals. And this session helped me to just that brief glimpse of joy that it's okay. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle. Would someone else like to share their experience?
I'd be happy to share.
Christy, you're up.
The other thing I wanted to share is that I spoke with someone who was younger than me, which I thought was amazing because we had very different looks on it. And I can honestly say that I wish when I was a young person, a young mother, I had that information. I'm a meditator, so what you brought to the table is something I practice on a daily basis because you can't shine out, you can't shine to anyone else if you don't shine to yourself, is sort of my belief. So, and it's not selfish. Taking care of yourself is the least selfish thing you can do. Yet we seem to think it's the most selfish. So it is not, it's absolutely the least selfish. So I think it's a #1 priority. But I just want to say that it's so great that you're able to give this to some of the younger women in this crowd, and I hope they embrace it and use it, because it will get you through some of your darkest times. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Welcome.
And the woman I was with was amazing, so I wish her all the best.
Great, thanks, Christy. So there's a question in the chat from Anna. How do you practice self-compassion without feeling that you're also doing that badly? Such an important question. That judging, threatening mind just doesn't want to turn off. It's always going to have its little say. So one of the things that I didn't get a chance to do, and which was was hoping to do today, but just in the interest of time we couldn't do it, which is how else do we deal with negative self-talk? And so I'm happy to come back at another point and talk about that. But let me just briefly say, you go like this. Thank you for sharing, and I'm still going to keep trying. I'm going to be kind to myself about that too. How can I offer compassion to myself for that voice that doesn't think I'm doing perfectly? Right? Is that helpful, Anna?
Yes. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? Question, concern, issue, share? Anyone want to? I'm looking at the other screens here. Anyone else want?
Hi, I'm new as a guest to the group. I'm Kristen. I just wanted to thank everyone here, especially my partner, because it was wonderful to arrive to a new space and have this be the first activity I'm exposed to. So thank you. I'm so apologetic. I have to leave a little early, but I just wanted to express my deep gratitude and future hope that I get to know more of you better.
Great. Well, come on in, and you will, because this is what we do every time.
I love it. Thank you.
Somebody else want to share? Question, observation, experience?
I'd love to, MJ. Thank you so much for just bringing us back to center. I had a beautiful share with a kindred spirit who also regularly practices compassion and mindfulness. And I was laughing because I was actually preparing some work around this topic and realized that I was having stress and anxiety around it. And through the exercise, it was like, wow, I know this stuff, and yet here I am not actually honoring what's happening in the moment, the messages that my body is telling me. And through the exercise, like tuning into my heart, it was like, I'm anxious. Wow. And it was just beautiful. You know, thank you. Like, you know, regardless of how much experience we have or we don't have, just these constant reminders, and being in a community where we can practice this together, there's always beautiful pearls of wisdom and a return to what's true for us. And, you know, I recognized through that, it was like, I haven't been outside today, I need a walk. And my partner and I, Hannah, had just a beautiful exchange on how easy it is to forget what we know, and just the wonderful effect of just having these opportunities to come together and practice and, you know, be reminded. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. One of my teachers said something that has always stuck with me. We give to everyone else what we most need to give to ourselves. And I try to remember that all the time, because anytime that I'm working with someone and I'm telling them, like I just did recently, you need time off, you need time off. I'm like, oh, I need time off. Right? So it's like, so how do you make sure that what we're giving as advice that we also take for ourselves too? And so, yeah, a good reminder for that. Somebody else asked how to catch yourself to do this. So I don't know what you mean, Esther. So say one more thing, and then this will be our last question.
So what I mean is, it all sounds good. And when you're with someone and they're telling you to do it, it's good. How do you catch yourself? How do you remind yourself? How do you create a habit to do this?
So it's self-awareness that your threat system is turned on. So it's like, I'm attacking myself. Oh, stop. Self-compassion instead. It's you do have to increase your ability to notice, and mindfulness meditation is the best way to build the muscle, what's called mind sight, which is the ability of your mind to know what your mind's doing. So
Thank you.
Okay, BBG, over to you.
I can't, MJ. I'm taking fierce notes, and I'm trying to like learn all of this. I'm busy right now. This community is something else. I facilitate. When it was still a thing, I would facilitate in a room with people, and I was usually pretty good at vibing with the room. That's what I loved so much about facilitation, and the energy and the vibe in this room is so high and intense right now. So I don't know if I'm projecting or if everybody's like feeling from the conversations that we just had. So thank you so much, MJ. So much gratitude for that. So as we start to wrap up, I'm going to pass it on to Susan Tyson, who's both an activator and a venture, and she's going to be making an ask on behalf of the SheEO community. So you'll also get to see what a specific ask is. So Susan.
Hi, thanks BBG. Hopefully you can hear me. My sound wasn't working too well. Can you hear me, BBG? Can you give me a thumbs up? Yeah. So I'm Suzanne Tyson, founder and CEO of higheredpoints.com. We allow students to use anybody's loyalty points to pay for their tuition and to repay their government student loans here in Canada. And today we've converted over 300 million loyalty points into $2 million worth of tuition and student loan repayments. Higher Ed Points is a SheEO venture, and I've been an activator since the year I became a venture, which is 2018. And it was two friends of mine who made me apply. I didn't have time, I was too busy, everything else was going on in my life. They said, sit down and get that application in on the deadline. And one of the women was my former business partner, and the second was a former colleague from that venture. And in that venture, we had private equity funding. And while that's a tale for a different day, I will disclose that I donated an organ to the private equity investors as a result of the stress that they put on us from day one with their unrealistic expectations. And so I knew with Higher Ed Points, I did not want to take on any outside investors, and I wanted to see if we could bootstrap it. So that was a big reason I applied. And I was astounded when we became a venture. And that's also another story, the whole journey as a venture. But here's ask number one. If you know women in your life who are running their ventures, please, 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 the application for Canada, US, and the UK is open. Please encourage them or make them, as my friends did, apply. Because it's super easy and the impact has been great. Higher Ed Points would not be here if I hadn't become a venture and remained active with SheEO. I love my venture cohort and meeting all the new ventures, but really what continues to amaze me is the activator community. I feel like I found my sisters from another mother, and occasionally a guy as well. Who joins, but I've never been involved in a community where you meet someone new and the very first thing they ask you after the introductions is, how can I help you? And not only do they ask you, they actually follow through. It's unbelievable. Victoria Pelletier was the first activator I met, and she continues 3 years later to connect me with people who are like-minded, support my mission in my mission to increase access to education. So I have lots and lots of stories that I could share about how I've tapped into the collective and individual generosity of the SheEO community. But one was a time where I had to go to a bank for a very contentious conversation about that bank joining Higher Ed Points. And I didn't know who to take with me. And so I reached out to MJ, who was my coach. She suggested I reach out to Vicky. And within an hour, without exaggeration, Vicky had connected me with Beth Horowitz, who is the former CEO of American Express. And she came with me to the meeting and helped me stick handle it beautifully. So tapping into that network that never would have happened without access to the community. And that's the power of SheEO. So my life mantra has always been, life is not a zero-sum game. We can all succeed. Business really should not be a zero-sum game, winner take all. And SheEO is the first community that embodies that with everything they do. That's why I'm an activator. And this leads me to ask number two. I hope everyone here will activate and or bring another fabulous woman to activate as well. Because now, especially now with the pandemic, we need each other more than ever. And the world needs SheEO more than ever. Thanks for the time, BBG.
Thank you so much. I love that story. I want someone to bring with me. It's unbelievable. I think you're up next, Jessie.
Yes, thank you so much, BBG. So we want to try a new Zoom feature today. We're constantly iterating with feedback from the community. So for those who are interested in getting involved with the community, if you are inspired by what you heard today, I'm going to launch our first ever Zoom poll and would love to hear from those guests who are interested. You'll see the poll now in front of your Zoom screen. How would you like to participate? Let us know if you're interested in becoming an activator, applying as a venture, and or reactivating for the existing activators on the call. And then for guests who are joining us today who have questions about activating, let us know if you'd like to connect one-on-one with an existing activator and we can get that set up for you. So I'll give you all a moment to complete your poll responses. All you need to do is just submit your answers and then we'll receive them on our end. And thank you so much to those who have already reactivated and activated for our 2020 cycle of radical generosity. So while that is happening, I also just wanted to show, this is a suggestion from a new activator earlier this week. I'm going to share my screen and show you what it looks like when you sign up to activate. So Caitlin's going to drop the link in the chat. And then I also will just do a quick demonstration. So this is the link to sign up. It's community.sheeo.world/sign-up. And when you go to this link that Caitlin's added to the chat, you will read the SheEO Credo, which is a representation of what our community stands for and what we're all about. And then you'll be invited to enter your name and your email and how you heard about SheEO. And from there, you'll get an email in your inbox with your link to complete your activator profile. And then you can select one of 3 payment options. So you can choose to activate via monthly payments, which is a really great option, $92 a month. So think of it as $3 a day to help fund amazing world-changing ventures like Suzanne, who's helping people pay for their education. And then there's also a one-time $1,100, and you can sign up for annual auto renewal. And now that we're doing virtual events, you're already at your computer, which makes it easier than ever before to activate. So it's just a few clicks and responses, and you can start immediately connecting with our community, joining our weekly calls and workshops. We have an Ask and Give platform where you can reach the global community to get support you may need as well. And 2 last things. So we'd love to hear your feedback on today's event. So Caitlin's going to add a link in the chat that you see now. We'd love to hear how today was for you. If you have any suggestions on how we can continue to iterate these events. This is the first time that we've brought SheEO Development Guide MJ Ryan to a public call. So especially for the guests, would love to hear how your experience was today. And last but not least, I'm going to take a group photo for us. We would love to amplify our experience today on social media so we can continue to grow our community and invite more women to join us. So we have a few screens here. I'm just going to enlarge my screen. Would love for you all to invite you to make a gesture about how the power of self-compassion has you feeling and how you're feeling heading into the rest of the day. So on the count of 3, if we can see those gestures, the power of self-compassion. 1, 2, 3. And then the second screen here. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it back to BBG for final words.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, everybody. I continue to be amazed at this community. Lisa was on a training that I gave yesterday. Kavita and I are having a conversation, I think today or tomorrow. I've just seen so many women. Tanya and I spoke a while back. So it's just, yeah, it feels amazing. And I really, really encourage you to join because it's a safe space of people holding you up and allowing you to pursue your dreams. So thank you for being here. I hope you activate, and I hope we see you again on another call. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, BBG.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Carisha.
Jessie. Bye.